Most people think of Stoicism as a philosophy where you just sit there and be silent. You have two ears and one mouth for a reason. I think that's a quote from a Stoic philosopher. And there's even a term, be Stoic, right? And you look like the Easter Island face, the Maui, the Stonehenge face, you get what I mean? I have two quotes from two very, very popular Stoic philosophers that completely contradict this idea. And in fact, it supports my argument that Stoicism is in fact a very, very charismatic philosophy. One from Marcus Aurelius is, if you are affected by anything external, it is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Second, by Epictetus, and I can't remember this off my head, so I'm literally just gonna break the fourth wall here, and I'm literally gonna read the script from right there. This is so fucking unprofessional, but I'll do it. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. So what do these two quotes mean? Essentially, let's say there's a thunderstorm, or maybe your crush doesn't like you, or maybe the girl that likes you a little bit, you think she likes you, she smiles at you, and then one day she doesn't like you. You can't really control that. It just comes out of nowhere, correct? It's like an external circumstance. But what you can 100% of the time control is how you respond to it. You get to choose how you respond by changing the way you think. Now that's some cool philosophy right there. But I'm not here to give you just philosophy. You know, all of those other channels, I'm not shitting on them, but they just give you this philosophy and they give you some advice and then they end the video right there. They don't actually ever tell you how. Like, they give you the philosophy, for example. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. And then they just leave the video there. Okay, I get to choose how I respond, but how do I fucking do it? And so in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that with 3 ways, and they all kind of interlink together, so I guess you can treat this as a masterclass. And if I'm gonna be honest, all 3 of these have had a significant impact in my life. Okay, how does this get me bitches? What the fuck? I thought this video was about charisma. Yeah, I'll get to that. Relax. But when I mean change my life, I don't mean this in a way that's supposed to keep you here for longer, because I know there's a bunch of YouTubers out there that put change my life in the title and it never actually changed their life at all. So I guarantee if you follow everything in this video with full intent, listen to everything all the way through and have some humility, maybe drop your ego a little bit to listen to this video, I guarantee you will feel a change. Is it though? Is it gonna change my life? Is this another one of those bullshit videos? Oh. Now there's 2 parts to this chapter, so let's bring it back to a time where I was obsessed with this one girl in one of my classes, and we were talking, but then I think somewhere I messed it up. Maybe I didn't show intention enough, maybe I didn't go full force enough. It caused her to not like me as much. It caused her to like pull back a little bit in the relationship, and this, obviously as a young lad, this hurt me a little bit. So I thought this was like the be all and end all. Oh, the world's ending. Oh, she no longer likes me. Shit, I can't do anything about that. But then I was also reading a book at the time called The Way of the Superior Man, and it's this like very spiritual book. You've probably heard of this if you've been in a self-improvement industry a long time. And it's a book on spirituality, life, and social dynamics, basically. And what it said was, as long as it's not like a very, very bad experience or like a traumatic experience or like a ick with you, essentially you can always get a woman back. That's what it's trying to say. Obviously it didn't say that in the book because it's like fucking spiritual professional text that I can't even say word by word here, so I'm literally just paraphrasing in the most unfiltered way. And essentially he was saying, no matter how much you get a woman to dislike you, you can basically just like flip it on its head. So for example, if you tell your woman you're gonna go to the cinemas together, but then she's like, oh, I don't want to go to the cinemas, but then if you say it in like a little bit of a different tone and you feel really cheerful about going to cinema, then apparently she goes along with it easier. So forgive me for not remembering what the chapter was, but I specifically remember at the time it was so fucking mind-breaking. I read the chapter and afterwards I was like, there was such a massive sense of relief. And after reading that part of the book, the relationship actually got better because I believe I didn't have this like mental knot in my brain, this limiting belief that basically whenever I saw her or whenever I was in class with her, I was just in this bad mood. I was just in this, oh, I fucked up type of mood. And so I believed that fixed the relationship. And then, a few months later, I fucked it up again. So that's the first part of this chapter. Gaining wisdom from actual fucking wisdom. So books, podcasts, it just basically offers you a new way of thinking. Now the second part is arguably better and longer lasting, and it's through getting your own experience, your own anecdotal experience. So let me give you an example. There's a few girls in my classes that have this natural resting face that is very, very hard to talk to, hard to approach. If a girl's smiling all the time, obviously she's gonna be easier to talk to. And this initially made me think that they were like sophisticated, hard to talk to, higher standards. But then as I talked to them, I realized that they're just normal people, that they aren't just this like fucking weird alien that I've put on a fucking pedestal. If you talk to them and literally just get like the tiniest smile, it doesn't have to be a massive smile, you'd realize that it's actually really fucking easy, and that all of your thoughts beforehand, before talking to them, was just born out of fear. But I can't just tell you to go and get experience, can I? That would be kind of rude of me, because what do you talk about? How do you even talk to them? And so in that case, in the next chapter, I have something that makes getting experience 10 times easier, which leads me to part 2.
I'm the money.
Every penny of it.
So let's say we start each day with a bar, and what this is charisma, or let's say, what's another word for it? Being the ability to be social. And the higher this is in the bar, the more social you are. And this, however much you have this, is dependent on sleep, how social your lifestyle is. So like how many friends do you meet on a daily basis, how many exciting and social situations you put yourself through. And it depends. If you're like a very sociable guy, you have loads of friends, you probably start like somewhere up here, right? And then as this bar goes up, it gets easier to be more social and more social. And how you increase this bar is by putting yourself in slightly uncomfortable situations, or just putting yourself in scenarios that are very, very sociable. So for example, if you buy anything from a shop, talk to the cashier with an extra sentence about like the weather or some shit, or maybe find your friends and start joking around with them, or talk to a random stranger, or ask someone if he needs help, ask a grandma if she needs help crossing the road. And this will get your bar higher and higher, higher and higher throughout the day, so that you can eventually, let's say, talking to a girl requires this much. I'm hoping you can see that once again. But the mistake most people make is trying to talk to the girl when they only have this much. Do you get what I mean? And this gap right here is the reason why, if you want to talk to a girl, you can't. And you're staring at the clock, the time's ticking away, you say you're gonna find the perfect situation to talk to her, oh, but then her friends are looking, oh, but then let me just wait 5 more minutes until the end of the lesson, and then it hits the end of the lesson and you've not spoken a single word to her. This is the reason why, because you're still fucking down here. But if you were throughout the entire day talking to strangers, making yourself a bunch of jokes with your friends, being really, really social, and you bring yourself up here, guess what? It'll be like 10 times easier to talk to a girl. And this I call the social bar. I think someone has used that name before, or maybe I came up with the name myself. Essentially, it's warming yourself up to social situation. I think another name for it is social lubrication. But I don't want you to make another mistake, which most people do, and it's thinking that you have to, when you're walking to school, you have to head nod at everyone, you have to smile at everyone. That gets a little bit autistic. You just, whenever there's an opportunity where you feel, like authentically feel that you want to talk to the person, you talk to it instead of backing out of fear. And once you talk to them, it will go up eventually. So don't obsess over this. Don't make this the center of life, because you will get to a point where, oh, I talked to that guy earlier, why am I not feeling any confident now? Why isn't it working? And then you just get highly, highly in your head, and that is not what we want to achieve here. That is the opposite of what we want to achieve. And by the way, it's actually easier than you think to raise the bar. For example, I had this girl that I wanted to talk to. She had that resting bitch face that I talked to you about early on. And it was super, super hard to talk to her because, it was the only lesson of the day, I'm pretty sure. Or no, I was just not social that day for whatever reason. And I found it obviously super fucking hard to talk to this like decently attractive girl with a resting bitch face. And so what I did was joke around with my friend a little bit, and immediately I found it way easier to actually say her name and start talking to her. Immediately. And I don't want you to think this is some hard thing to do as well. In fact, this scenario that I'm telling you about now with the resting bitch face girl, that only happened just a few months ago. So just joke around with a friend, talk to the teacher, answer the teacher's question, ask questions in class, and you'll find it 10 times easier to talk to that one girl you want to talk to. Now, let's say you're on a roll, super sociable right now. You go and talk to the girl, but what if she's in a bad mood? And what if the interaction doesn't go the way you think it would go? And immediately it strikes down and you're in your head again. Am I good enough? What did I do wrong this time? And so how do you deal with that? How do you prevent yourself from going down this spiral of negative thoughts and basically ruining your own day? And this brings me to part 3. Step 1 is de-dramatize. And this is going to sound a little bit vague at first, but I promise you, I'll give you the concrete action step alongside the philosophy so that you don't get lost on what to do. Most people, when something bad happens to them, maybe their friend doesn't nod back, their friend doesn't, say hi, they think it's a unique situation. They think it's only something that happens to themselves, and they feel that this feeling only happens to them. And so the 2 concrete action steps here, it's gonna sound not as sexy as, do 10 push-ups and then stand in this pose and then you'll gain like 10 times your confidence, but it is super fucking powerful when you combine it with the 2 other steps in this framework that I'm going to tell you about. And one is to think of your social anxiety, your self-criticism, your self-doubt, suffering, your depression, your anxiety, all of it as a collective suffering. So instead of my sadness, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling the sadness, because it's everyone feels these feelings. Even the top monks that have been meditating for ages, they still feel anger. And second is think of someone you admire that goes through your same situation or feels the same emotions as you. And I want to emphasize that this is an actionable step. For example, let's say your next lesson at school. You get a situation that stresses you out. Think of those 2 things. Run it through your entire mind. The second step of this framework is neutralize. And this, you have to realize that our minds are heavily biased, and especially biased towards negativity. This is why every single mainstream news is negative. This is why if you've ever been a YouTuber, you know that if someone comments a negative thing, but then there's like 100 positive comments, you still have that negative comment revisiting your brain more than those positive comments will ever. And the simplest way to do this is by meditating. But if you're like me and you honestly can't stick to your meditation habit, the best way to think of this, and I think this is more effective anyways, is by seeing your thoughts as graffiti. Again, if you're in a negative scenario, negative situation, run this through your brain of thinking about your thoughts as graffiti on a wall. When you're walking by the wall, you'd probably be like, oh, that's a pretty cool piece of graffiti if it's actually good. And you just walk by and then you forget it later. It's just a suggestion. We have to remember that our thoughts are just suggestions. They're like bubbles, they're like graffiti on a wall. So the action step is to mentally run that through your mind. Actually think of your thoughts as graffiti the next time you're in class, the next time you're in a situation with people. Now, the third and final step of this framework is rewrite your reality. And what this means is thinking of a situation in a different way that elicits out of you a different response. For example, there's the reckless driver analogy, where there's a reckless driver and you want to beat the shit out of the reckless driver for putting everyone in danger. But then what if the driver in the car was actually reaching back to the baby's seat to try and save the baby's life from like choking or some shit? And then your anger would completely go away, wouldn't it? And really the only way I've found to do this personally is through God. So suppose God puts me through a scenario that's highly stressful, and let's say it's a group of youths, a group of tough people, a group of roadmen, and they're all making nasty comments or whatever. Maybe just maybe God's either giving me gym motivation, or God wants me to learn a way on how to deal with hate, because you're always gonna get hate in your life. You're always gonna go through stress in your life. So what if God's putting me through the shock therapy? Now, I'm getting a little bit out of my head, but what if God's giving me practice? There's always a reason, right? God, the illustrator, God does everything in your life. God sees everything, correct? Or maybe you could just take the approach of an atheist, of how you should take absolute extreme responsibility for everything. How, oh, your girl broke up with you. Gym motivation, good. Now you have infinite energy for like 6 months. So now you've learned the techniques on how to manage your thoughts. Once you apply all of these techniques throughout the next few days, you'll begin to do these things like their second nature. Obviously, the first few days, it's going to be a little bit conscious effort. It's going to be a little bit difficult. But as soon as these get ingrained with you, you'd like social situations. But you may be heading towards a very, very common pitfall that a lot of people fall into, which is talking to people or at people instead of with them. And trust me, there is a fucking big difference between talking at someone and with someone. Click on a video that's appearing on the screen right now to learn how to do just that and make friends 10 times easier. See you there.